Should you watch A Genius Prince's Guide to Rising a Nation Out of Debt? Holy moly. Anime names, you know the deal. Anyway, simply put, the show is very similar to another one. You might have seen The Realist hero rebuilds a kingdom. Similar idea, except no isekai. Instead, we are given an old-timey aristocracy world with a prince who happens to be incredibly smart. But despite his mass intelligence, he is kind of a layabout. Doesn't get up to too many things besides reading, and of course is uninterested in leading a kingdom. Well, the anime starts with him getting the keys to the castle because his father falls ill. And the shorthand of the show, I guess, is Prince gets thrust into conflict, big brain plan, outsmarts 5D chess, destroys his opposition, coming out on top over and over and over again, all the while kind of getting nudged in these directions outside of his own control. But as the series progresses and as he keeps getting more W's on W's on W's, people start to take notice, friends start to come into the show, and it just is extremely satisfying, actually. I would highly advise this show to someone who's looking for an anime that is kind of light. To me, it's worth watching, and frankly, it to me is the perfect anime that fits into when you need a break for the super amazing but also emotionally taxing kind of anime. It's like the one in between, you know what I mean? One that kind of resets your palate. You'll probably enjoy your experience having watched it, but it's not quite like The Realist hero where it attacks a story from a different angle. It gives you philosophy and it kind of builds out this world. It does do a little bit of building out the world, but it's more or less just a show that is a nice, comforting rhythm. It's not necessarily like this beautiful sonnet of epic proportion, which can be exhausting. It's not also something extremely unique and has an interesting premise and or idea. It's just satisfying enough to enjoy your time and to want a little bit more. It's not only that, but there are lovely characters in this show, and it does deal with some cool ideas. The prince has a companion, we'll call her, that is his lifelong companion, friend, Goofball, that kind of knows who the prince actually is and how much of a layabout he actually is. And all the other characters that kind of get sprinkled in are fun. And again, the show keeps an absolutely brilliant pace to where you actually feel like you're making ground really good. For what it's worth, if you're wanting a show that kind of knocks your socks off, gives you amazing ideas, incredible premise, is emotional, has depth of characters, does something really unique, this to me at least isn't quite the show. So don't go into it thinking that. Again, the show to me is it's a comforting rhythm, one that is good to cleanse the palate before you go and take on those bigger, more loftier shows that people have been telling you to watch for years now. But we all need a break. We all need one that's just kind of a nice hug instead of a giant, more things anyway. But alas, to answer the question, who is this show directly made for? I think it's made for people who like the I just beat you, I thought 5 steps ahead, there's not a single doubt that I'm going to pull this W out of this trickster hat, I'm going to outplay you, there's politics, there's conquest, there is army, sequencing, although that gets not as complicated. It's not like Civ where you're seeing pawns kind of get taken out of the chess piece game, all that stuff, not too crazy, but still something that I think would be satisfying enough to where you get a little bit of that political domination itch scratched. So you're into those kinds of things. Overlord dips its toe in, Reincarnated Slime also dips its toe into those things. The Realist hero, however, I do think a lot of people will probably favor that anime more because of the fantasy element and because of the philosophy element and because of the way that it expresses the plan. The prince is basically like, I am a genius, therefore I've managed to pull a W. Whereas the Realist hero is like, I am learning from our previous human history and philosophy to dictate what we should do in this fantasy world. So it's a little bit different, but alas, don't want to take up too much more of your time. That's the premise of the show. All in all, I would highly advise it for those of you guys who like the political angle to anime, and of course, knowing that your main character is more or less bulletproof. And there's also a subliminal, lovely romance element to the show, which is quite enjoyable. And the prince is a goofball, which is cute. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. Consider watching this show. I liked it quite a bit, and I would be very happy for a season 2. Now, with that being said, season 2, probably far off. The anime got very good reviews. Also, a ton of people watched it, but unfortunately, the source material does have enough for a season 2, but is still ongoing. And a lot of shows that even if they're successful, they want the source material to be way ahead and or completed before they start making more seasons. But they have a pretty good gauge of a lot of people like this show, so expect more of it when the source material is way caught up or is completely finished. But alas, give it a watch. It ends in a nice way. Doesn't end with too much of a cliffhanger, so you'll be right as rain, satisfied, all that. Thank you kindly for your time. Consider subscribing, and I will continue to talk to your ear off about anime. Thanks again, and goodbye.